Hey guys, today's interview is with Zahra, who is a developer at Bloomberg in London, in the UK. So I thought it was pretty cool that she was actually stepped up last minute. She had like 5 minutes notice because our the developer we were going to interview unfortunately was sick. So I asked if anyone I knew would step up, and she did. So thank you to her for doing that. It's really cool. We're going to talk about her job, internships. We're going to talk about going to hackathons. She's also an admin for Hackathon Hackers, which has 45,000 members on Facebook. We talk about that, and we talk a little bit about the female perspective being in a male-dominated workplace. I think it's really important to get a different perspective on things. But I hope you guys enjoy this, and thank you to her again for stepping up in our time of need. But enjoy. I know I had a good time talking with her.
Code everything.
Oh, okay, there we go.
Hey, there's nothing when two developers come together we can't accomplish, man.
Oh god. Okay.
Oh, well, thank you so much for stepping in last minute like this.
No worries.
Yeah, unfortunately, our guest for the day basically forgot it because he'd been sick all week, I guess, and so he kind of dipsetted about 5 minutes before we were supposed to go live, and so I was trying to find a developer. I appreciate you so much taking the time.
No worries. I'm always just lurking about online anyway.
Yeah, I know. All us developers are lurking online one way or the other, right?
Yep.
Would you mind introducing yourself to a few people and maybe talking a little bit about your current job or experience in software?
Sure. My name's Zahra. I am a software developer based in London. I work for Bloomberg. I'm actually a new grad, so I started work in August, and I work in their mobile team. So I work on the iOS app for customers, and I also do some Python and Java microservices. What I've been doing recently. Other than that, I also admin Hackathon Hackers and Hackathon Hackers Europe, which eats up the rest of my spare time. But yeah, that's essentially what you find me doing.
Nice. Yeah. So for you guys who don't know, I constantly am preaching about like diving into coding, whether it be meetups. But one of the other great things that I personally am a part of is Facebook groups. So like Hackathon Hackers is what she was just talking about. Coding Newbies is another one I'm a part of. And I think Free Code Camp Los Angeles. But the Hackathon Hackers has what, like 45,000 people? Something like that?
There's a lot of people waiting to be accepted as well. It's an interesting job.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah. And that's one of those things that I think is pretty cool when you put something like that on your resume where it's like, hey, I like that. Like that shows that you're committed to the kind of the software grind.
Yeah. I kind of fell into the whole tech community outside of work and university thing a couple of years ago. I started off attending a hackathon and then just gradually working my way up to organizing one and then just kind of adminning a group of 45,000 people who like hackathons. So that was interesting. But yeah.
Nice. Now, what do you mean you kind of felt you just went to a hackathon and was like, yo, man, I think I like this?
Yeah, basically. So I was in my second year of university or college, as you have it, and we in the UK we do 3-year bachelors rather than 4. I went there after a year of uni, having heard of some other people go to these like hackathon event things, and thought, hey, maybe I should try one out. Couldn't hurt. I went, and then I kind of didn't stop attending for like the next year or so. I went to a ridiculous number looking back at it, but yeah, and essentially from there, attended a few more, started volunteering at other people's, and then ended up running one in collaboration with another uni at my own. So that was quite fun.
Nice. Now, so yeah, you say you're working in iOS. Have you actually worked on any of your own sort of like side project apps or anything like that?
I have in the past. So not so much these days. I've been video training. But before that, I do a lot of experimentation. I'm very bad with side projects. I never quite finished them. However, there is one I worked on in the past. It was an Android app, which is actually how I sort of fell into my job. And it was for, so essentially in the UK, surgeons who are in training have to log all of their training into this national database. And essentially there was only one app available, and it wasn't, let's say, very user-friendly. So I went along and partnered up with a doctor from the NHS to work on that. And then they took the app, and yeah, hopefully something's been done with it now.
So I see here that you were a software intern, development intern at Bloomberg, and then it looks like you got hired with the same company a little while later. Is there kind of a story along with that, or? I
did. I mean, so it's quite funny. The first hackathon that I went to was actually in their offices. Completely independently of that, I applied. I was like, hey, I came to your office. I love this event you ran. I think you're really cool. Hi, please. And yeah, just went through the process, got that job, ended up in a really great team, in the mobile team. I really enjoyed it. Just hard during the internship, and they're like, yeah, we'd love you to come back. And actually, it's not quite that simple either. So I was actually meant to be doing a 4-year degree, but then, so I was going to do a master's, but then in my 3rd year, I was like, you know what? I felt like I was learning a lot more on the job than I was at university. I figured I'll just leave with the bachelor's and I'll just go back to work. And I was like, will you take me back? And I'm like, yeah, sure. So here I am. And I do feel like I'm learning a lot more.
Yeah, that's one of the things I always tell people is like, there's always this like, oh man, I just want to live that digital nomad lifestyle. But you really learn so much being in a workplace that you have to kind of work yourself up to that. You're not just going to graduate and then before you know it, you're just going to be, yeah, man, I'm just a freelance developer. Never stepped a day in an office. It doesn't necessarily work like that.
Exactly. Like when you're at university or self-teaching, essentially when you're at university, you're mainly self-teaching when it comes to software development, which is a big thing that led to me leaving slightly early. But the thing is, you don't realize how much you're missing out on in terms of people's experience, in terms of like learning about clean code, how to structure your code properly, how to work at scale, all of these things. Like, it's a lot less likely you'll have someone looking over your code and giving you pointers and things like that than it is when you're at the workplace. So
I see that.
Really.
Yeah, I see that you have a BS in computing. What is that different than like computer science? What is that sort of field of computing?
It's a technical thing, basically, because I was on a computer science course. Essentially, it's like a really technical detail. I didn't do a dissertation as part of my 3rd year. Instead, I just did research. So if you don't do a dissertation, they'll give you a computing degree rather than a computer science degree. Although I would argue research is possibly more scientific than building an app and writing a long essay about it. But there we go.
Yeah, I'm not one for formal education. I kind of think that it has its pitfalls, but it's part of the world we live in, unfortunately, at times. What is the software scene like? Because I've never been to London or the UK. Is there a big like software tech community in London?
There's a very big startup community, actually. I say working for an extremely large company. But yeah, there's like, in terms of large companies, we don't have quite as many situated in the UK. So the startup scene is really thriving. Obviously, London is like basically the financial center of Europe for the time being. We'll see how that goes in a year or two. Thanks, Theresa May. But yeah, but so a lot of the startups around here are focused on fintech, and a lot of the world's Europe's at least most well-known financial startups are based in London. So that's quite cool, and it's very easy to network and find out more about lots of cool companies.
Yeah, I see that you made the coding curriculum. You made a textbook. You want to talk about that a little bit?
It wasn't a textbook. So this was a university project, actually, which was really awesome. it was a great thing for them to include. So essentially in the UK, when I started my degree, no one was really studying coding until they got to just pre-university years. So like, how old? 16, 17 years old. Unless they somehow decided to take it and had it available at their school at like 15, which was the earliest, really. So we didn't really have the benefit of knowing anything about computer science or coding as we were getting older when we were in our younger years, so like primary school and stuff like that. So recently the government decided everyone should learn how to code when they're in school, when they're quite young. I'm not sure how old they are, but it's sort of like 11, 12, from that age sort of, and if not a bit younger. So it's actually mandatory now for them to teach this at every school in the country. So we put together some materials for some students to be able to learn things outside of using a computer. So teaching them computational thinking and just some Python syntax as well to go along with that, and essentially just guide them through and get them to the stage where they could code a simple game of Hangman. And like, you start off and you're thinking, okay, literally, how am I going to teach code without a computer? This is insane. But you just think about it, and there's so much to computer science and to coding that just doesn't involve actually writing things in your terminal or in your text editor and running them. There's just an entire way of thinking that you realize doesn't necessarily come naturally.
Nice.
So that's the main thing we were trying to do there. Ironically, my first talk was basically about how I used to hide under a desk and not want to speak publicly. And then when I got into hackathons, that actually helped me out a lot. So that's one of the things about going to computing events and things like that. You get to talk to people about things you know about, that you're passionate about. And that takes away a lot of the fear or the nervousness someone might have about public speaking. So that's just a great way to get into speaking if you want. Go to meetups, present something to people that you've worked on, and it'll be a lot easier than doing it otherwise.
Nice. Now, I'm very glad to hear that they're making all the children in the UK, for the most part, learn how to code, like, or at least be introduced to it. Do you, as a female in a primarily male-dominated employment, it's like in the United States, it's like 90% men, 10% females. Is that kind of the same in the UK when it comes to developers and the kind of software environments?
I would say so. I think it's like 20%, maybe. I'm not sure. I don't have any stats, but that's what it feels like. But yeah, I mean, I don't take big issue with being female in this industry. I'm not sure how different it is between the UK and the US, but most people are extremely respectful and it just doesn't make a difference. Yeah, occasional be that one thing where it's like, what are you doing? But otherwise, it's not really being too much of an issue for me. So.
Okay. Yeah, because I always I have a very unique standpoint, because to me, it's like I only work with like men, like, because we're a small team. We have about 4 developers, and like I always wonder, like, and we're saying sometimes inappropriate things that if we had other other genders in there, I was wondering, like, I wonder how that would change the dynamic. But in the real workplace, you need to have not necessarily equal, but I always wonder, like, how it is from the other side, right? Like, how, because if I was in a different industry, primarily female dominated, I try to think, like, what would it be if, like, I walked in and I was just like, hey, like, what are you guys talking about? Like, is there any sort of things where, because I have no idea what it's like to be in a gender dominated field. Anything that kind of stands out, or nothing at all?
I mean, for me, it was quite funny because since I was like, when I was between 11, no, was it 11 or 10? 11 to 18, I was actually in an all-girls school. So
Okay.
then when I started university, there were like 100 of us, and then there were like 10 girls maximum, and it was like, but it just didn't feel that weird. I know that a lot of women may or may not be comfortable. Obviously, I can't generalize. I'm one woman. Like, I can't speak for all of us.
Oh yeah, definitely.
But in my experience, it didn't make too much of a difference. Yeah.
I'm glad to hear that, because I want to ask the question, because obviously I'm coming from the other side of the coin, and I would like to know, could you tell me about the sort of going to an all-girls school? Do you think there's any benefit or any detriment or anything about that?
So, I mean, I can't really remember being at primary school too much, but I think the research and stuff says, this is me completely going off my memory right now. I apologize if I get anything wrong. That is very likely. But I feel that a lot of the research suggests that when girls are in all-girls schools, they feel a lot more comfortable speaking up, especially in science classes. And I think that's something that could impact on it. I mean, so my year group at school was quite small. There were about 36 of us. And I was one of 2 girls taking physics at the end of school when we were 17, essentially. So I honestly can't say. It's not like a cure-all to have like a girls' school there. Obviously, like a lot of girls were doing biology at school. Actually, more than half of the year were doing advanced level. But you know, it's also just the culture of what you put forward. So I didn't actually know what computer science was until I was about 17. I literally didn't know. Like, I didn't think about it. If you asked me what it was, I'd have been like, I literally don't know. I couldn't even have given you the stereotype of like guys in a basement, you know, coding away. I literally didn't know at all. I just never thought about it either. And that's a big blocker, I think, on women wanting to enter the industry. Just not necessarily that they have this stereotype, but just because it's not a career option that was presented to them necessarily, and they don't have the idea of what that is. But hopefully, like as we talked about earlier, especially in the UK, introducing it earlier in the curriculum will hopefully help out.
Yeah, and I hope they follow a similar path in the United States. Unfortunately, shit moves so slow here. But I would love to see, because even my audience, 89% male, 11% female, and it's like we need to get everyone involved, because we need as many good developers as we can have, and just introducing people to the field. You know, software is probably one of the safest industries to get into in general, and it's just like half the market of developers isn't necessarily being targeted in the United States. So I'm glad to hear that they're kind of changing that up in the UK. When talking about like your interview process that you went through at any sort of software jobs, did they focus a lot on data structures or algorithms, or any like what was happening in your interview process?
Yeah, data structures and algorithms are like the biggest section they'll focus on. It really depends between companies, but I found with like larger companies, it's very much you just get the technical question and you have to explain it. But even then, there's like such a split. In some cases, they'll be like testing a few different areas with smaller questions. And then in another company, they'll like throw a massive problem at you, which basically requires you to have that knowledge and put it in context. Whereas with smaller companies and startups, I found that it was very much more they wanted you to send them your code and like show them how you structured it, and challenges where you build something, not necessarily solve this problem, but build this product that can do this thing, essentially. If you see, yeah.
So we actually have a subscriber who's from the UK in here right now, and he wants to know where, when you were going to hackathons, if you still go or don't go, where can he find sort of hackathons and meetups, or where did you at least find your hackathons and meetups?
Okay, so I don't actually remember where I found the first one I ever went to, but I don't know if you've heard of Major League Hacking.
I have actually.
Yeah, it's like the official hackathon league in the US and Europe and Mexico and various other places around the world. But essentially, they have quite a selection, and I know a lot of the organizers of those, and they're all over the country now. So if you go to, I think it's mlh.io/EU, it might be /EU, let me check. Yeah, so if you go there, there are events running throughout the university season for not a university goer. There are also other Facebook groups such as Hackathon Hackers Europe, which will have ones that are for anyone who wants to attend as well. So yeah, I mean, I admin that, so shameless self-promotion in some respect, but also meetup.com is quite good for these things. There's like the hackathons and jams group, I think that's what it's called. Basically, online communities are the best way to find these things, really.
Special thanks to our sponsor, Dev Mountain. If you're interested in a coding bootcamp, why don't you check them out, where they include housing alongside their tuition so you can get up, go, and immerse yourself in the environment. If you want to support me, go over to patreon.com/codingtutorials360 so we can put out more content. Thanks for watching.